All right. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm just going to do a couple house cleaning items. I'm heavily invested in the NBA finals and the NHL Stanley Cup finals going on right now. Being born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and now living in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you can hear me fine, please type in the message window who you are rooting for, whether it's the Cavs or Warriors, or the Preds or the Penguins. All right. All right, got a couple of Cavs fans out there, which is good to hear. So it looks like everyone can hear me. I do want to note that this call is being recorded. So if you have any issues being recorded, this is a good time to drop. We will still have the recording of the call as well as the presentation decks uploaded to our Yammer community at aka.ms/cloud-infra-partner. I'll put that in the message window as well. Also, if at any time you have any audio issues, I have the bridge information listed in the messages also. Last thing to note, during the call, if you have any questions at all, please type them into the message window. And as there are breaks in the presentation, I'll be able to ask those questions for you. So thanks again for joining the last call of the year for us, the June Partner Community Call. For next month, July, we will not be holding a call. So the next time we'll actually speak after this will be in August. So we'll see you then. And just want to highlight that we'll be having two presentations today. Monica Bramsch will actually deliver an overview of the Azure PathFinder tool, and then Olivier Martin from the Global Black Belt team will provide an overview of the Azure Network Watcher. So at this time, I will pass it over to Monica.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. And let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Awesome. Love it when technology works. All right. So everyone, my name is Monica Bramschi. I work on the Azure Experience Marketing team. And this team sits across the entire cloud and enterprise marketing org and looks at cross Azure experience, things like Compete, sales tools such as TCO Calculator, Azure Channel Pricing Calculator, PathFinder, which is brand new, and I'll be walking through it today, service reliability support, data center, and various industry strategies like government and finance and so on. So with that being said, Azure PathFinder. What is Azure PathFinder? It's a guided questionnaire. It's a web interface, so you can do it on your smartphone, on your tablet, on your computer. It's perfectly aligned with the Azure 10 solutions, and it's designed to help you shorten the time it takes to identify and document and guide you through a customer conversation to identify their business needs and IT priorities. At the end, after spending maybe 5 or 10 minutes through these questions, you will get a report. As you can see on the right side, it has 3 sections to it. Top part is more your C-suite BDM conversation, talks about efficiencies and reducing cost and matters such as that. At the bottom, it's more like your IT pros, right? Your cloud reference infrastructure. It will explain what exactly you would need to build from the solution. And in the middle, as you know, Azure is a lot of different services, right? So we're kind of putting together a light solution proposal to kind of help you understand how to build them together. Now, another value that I see in this tool, besides guiding you in the conversations, of course, right? Maybe you know everything about your customer, or maybe you don't. These are questions to kind of remind you top of mind what to ask. It's also an account planning tool, right? You can do this at home if you feel with your V team, you already have the answers to kind of focus on, okay, what are we going to sell this quarter? What are we going to sell this next year? The reason why I'm saying current workloads versus V2 is because we're actually launching V2 in the next few days, probably on Friday. And like I said, it aligns with the Azure 10 once all of the 5 in V2 will be completed. In the slides that you'll be receiving, you'll have access to V1, so you'll have 7 workloads included. But on Friday, once you come back, and today I will be demoing to you V2, you will see it has a lot more workloads added in. Here are the resources on the left side, the partner portal, and I'll actually show you what that looks like, the field portal, and then V2 launching today. And these are actually a lot of the feedback points that we've received from partners and sellers. And I would love to hear your thoughts during the presentation or even after. Feel free to reach out at azurepathfinder@microsoft.com. And let me know what you think would be a priority to add in V2, because we know the tool is still not perfect, right? Nothing is ever perfect, and we're continuously striving to make it better and more efficient for you. So let me show you the partner portal. This is what it looks like. It's your one-stop shop for C&E partners. If you're unfamiliar with this, bookmark it. It's exactly broken down by our sorry, it's not letting me click on it. Okay. For some reason, I can't interact with the website. Let me just open it in a new tab. Okay, so for some reason it's not letting me click on it, but underneath products is where you will find Microsoft Azure, and under that you will find our tool. Let me see if I can open it from the resources here. There you go. Okay, so let's start in the tool. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why it's not letting me click on it. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay, now it's working. Sorry, Willie, I'm not sure why it's letting me click through, but when I'm sharing my desktop, it's not. Maybe you could share your screen and we could walk through the demo from your PC?
Sure, we could try that.
I literally stopped the sharing. It was letting me work it, and now it's not. Let me send it to you in the IM.
All right. Give me just a second to share my screen.
Awesome. So we can just start by signing in. And again, this QA is not perfect, right? It's still flushing out all the little details. But I wanted to show you this because it encompasses a lot more content. So as you can scroll down, you'll see that you can start the assessment from the bottom left corner. So here you'll just type your customer name, say Azure Infrastructure. Then we ask a few questions about your company. Let's choose government. Where your HQ is located, in case some of our, maybe our sellers can help you in that area, and then choose employees number, maybe 1,000. Now, as you can see, the questions, if you don't choose separately, you can also default at important. So now being in government, maybe big data analytics is critical, maybe data and intelligence is critical, but just for the purpose of the demo, we'll just leave them to somewhat important to default. Here we ask more about your business capabilities, right? Things like e-commerce, remote monitoring, digital marketing. And now as you can walk through these, you see patterns, right? If you're in retail, probably digital marketing is more important. If you're manufacturing, maybe remote monitoring or predictive maintenance are more important. Again, e-commerce could be more important for retail, right? So we'll just leave them to somewhat important. Next. Another great point about PathFinder is the questions are aligned to the digital transformation. When we pitch Azure in our EBCs, these are the focus areas that we look at, right? How do you engage your customers? How do you empower your employees? How do you transform products or optimize operations, right? We've been talking about the digital transformation for a long time. So Willie, if you want to click over on engage with your customers, a dropout will open of about 4 or 5 questions. Now, what's nice about the way we built the questions is when you just hover over the answers, you can see the different definitions. That way you don't have to guess what do we mean by maturity in your customer account, right? And of course, it talks about everything that has to do with engaging customers, things like your presence online, bots, digital marketing, collecting data. If you want to scroll under to the next section, how do we empower your employees? Again, questions around recruiting, mobility. Do you allow your customers, do you allow your employees to bring devices to work, or is it everything Excel based and one VPN? Productivity, do you have Yammer or not? And how do you engage your employees? Do you track their trainings? Do you track their participations? How do you recruit them? And so on. Scroll under, please. Now, as you can see, more questions. We won't go through these in detail because, again, we want to save time, but you understand what it means. Let's go next, and we'll leave them to basic as it defaults, which means average. Now, one of the things that we're looking at for V3 is actually putting maybe half points in between. Now it's 5 steps, but maybe looking at breaking it down in even more granular definitions. So keep an eye out. Here again, you can choose, let's choose tape backup. And next. And now you can see that it's asking more questions around specific workloads, right? We can go next. In the end, the report will recommend the top 3 solutions that it believes you need help with, right? Let's choose, let's say, company-owned data centers, because government, they haven't really moved their stuff yet. They're not really in a cloud. And let's choose that they are interested in a hybrid deployment, last option. And finally, of course, everybody wants to choose last option, reduce costs, right? Or maybe the second one, like we're worried about cybersecurity attacks. Next, please. So now we've noticed in the beginning that we said we're doing some open source, right? So let's choose Enterprise Linux. And now you can see that it's asking questions about the second solutions kind of guesstimated we're choosing. Next. Let's do the second one, right? A lot of folks we see want to create hybrid solutions with Red Hat. And now we've identified SharePoint as a tool because we said we're pretty basic, right? In engaging with our employees and our customers. So let's do the first one and the third one, right? A hybrid version, maybe move SharePoint on Azure. Now here, before you're done, you can actually scroll through and see the answers that you've filled out and go back and re-edit the sections. Now, if you do change the business landscapes and solution needs, you might have to answer the questions differently, right? Because if you answer mature in some areas, you might be recommended different solutions. So now let's hit next. So here you see the company recommendations, right? You see your company health and what our solutions would provide to you as building out your business. Now, if you scroll below, you'll see the solutions recommended, and we can actually dive deeper into the first one. And this is what I was talking about. See at the top, it talks more high level about the benefits. In the middle, if you want to scroll, it will show you what do we mean by data recovery, right? Store simple, maybe Azure backup or site recovery. And then finally at the bottom, what a cloud reference would look like. Now, if you scroll back up and you go back to all the solutions, right there, perfect. You can also print the report. Yep. And also view your answers at a glance. Now, underneath, you notice additional tools. We'll make that font white, but it's more calculators and tools that you can leverage in the conversation. Now, I just wanted to call out the Azure Digital Transformation white paper. We just launched this again about a month ago, and it's customer ready. You can leave it behind with your customers. It talks about the importance and immediacy of digital transformation. The cloud migration guide is actually a self-tool for your customer to fill out that they then upload in your TCO calculator to estimate how much the cost would be to migrate and how it compares to having your infra on-prem versus in the cloud. And of course, hybrid cloud takes you to the gated content to access the cloud community. And you'll see Julia White talking, our CNE CVP. Awesome. Any questions? I would love any initial feedback. I know this is a lot to take and you'd probably prefer to go in and go through the questions yourself, but anything that sticks out?
No questions as of yet.
Awesome.
Logistics was basically asking if this will be archived, and just to let everyone know, the call will be recorded, and we'll have the presentation decks and the recording available on our Yammer community.
Awesome. Yeah. So as I said, call to action. We would love to build this out even more for you. So please send any feedback at Azure PathFinder at Microsoft.com.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I also just added the link to the message board as well, so that you have that available.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Monica.
And you did well, Willie. Thank you.
Monica, there is one question about signing in. Do you have to be granted access, or how do you gain access?
Great question. No, we've actually given the feedback, opened it to partners. So partners are ready, partners, resellers, everyone. Okay, you log in, it's done based on Azure authentication. So if you have an Office 365 login or a work domain, it should work.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Monica. I appreciate that overview. Partners, if you do have any questions, feel free to post them to the Yammer community and we can get those answered at a later date. Right now, I want to pass things over to Olivier to discuss the Azure Network Watcher tool.
Excellent. Can you confirm that you are seeing the screen?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay, awesome. So thanks, guys, for having me in. Hopefully that's going to be helpful. There's not a lot of slides. You're going to see that I have about one useful slide, which is not this one, hopefully. By the way, as Willie said, I'm Olivier Martin, and I'm working as part of a team that we internally call the Global Black Belts, which is not so much ninja stuff, but rather deeply technical things that we do with our customers around, and I specialize around networking. So uh, the tool I want to show to you guys is show more than show in some slide, where it's the Network Watcher, which is a new tool that I think is awesome. We've come out to the market with this about 3 or 4 months ago, end of February, and you know, great things in there. So what is there? So in a nutshell, there's the topology view. I'll show you all of these things in the demo slightly later, but the topology in a nutshell is just shows you what your network looks like, how subnets are connected, how where are when you have a VM that have one or more NIC, and where they are connected, that kind of thing. And then a super interesting capability is packet capture. You guys on premises, you're used to capturing packets, I guess, or your customers are probably more than you, or maybe you're doing it for them. But when they have issues with their networks, or they have something that doesn't work quite like you expect, you sometimes want to put a sniffer somewhere. Network Watcher allows that for you. It sniffs, quote unquote, the machines, the virtual machines, and I will demo that as well. Next, PathFinder, that's a great tool that's there. Think of Network Watcher as a toolbox, really. So a couple tools. So next, PathFinder is a tool that from that centralized location, you're able to specify which virtual machine is sending a packet, where is it sending to, and then Azure tells you, here's where it's going. Useful a lot in troubleshooting cases. Security group view, it's another tool that essentially gives you the effective security rules that apply to a VM. So if you guys are familiar with what network security groups are, that's quite useful, because all in one place, you're able to see how the subnets and the default and the NIC security group affect the traffic flow. And I'll show that to you. And now IP flow is also a great thing. Is before we had those NSGs that are their network security groups, and you only had information on counters, right? So if you had a rule that says deny everything, we only know that the rule has been hit 12 times or 12 million times. You don't know by whom, you don't know when. So that's not super useful. But now with that flow logging ability, you have data that you can use with this, and I'll show you this as well. Actually, no, that was NSG logging. IP flow verifies actually to see if a flow will work. If you're going from, apologies for that. So if you have a virtual machine, you're wondering am I going to be able to reach this IP based on my NSGs? And if the answer is yes or no, you would see it there. And finally, there's a tool there that we've put there because we've had many requests from customers asking to be able to have more visibility when it comes to VPN troubleshooting. So if you guys have a virtual network gateway on a virtual network and you're having issues, creating your connections or making sure that they work properly, that tool can be helpful on top of the logs of the appliance you would have on premises or on the remote end. So without further ado, I will actually just show you real quick my screen here. We're already there. So looking at, you got it right here. Okay, so start this useful at times. So you've got this thing here, the Network Watcher. It's really, right, notice this little icon here when you install this, when you actually not install it because you don't have really anything to install. You just use this as a resource, and you have to enable it per region, right? So it's available everywhere. I did not enable it everywhere because I don't use it everywhere. I just have things in very specific regions. And once this is there, you have access to the whole box of tools there. If you look at the topology, which I talked about a little bit earlier, then you have to select first which resource group, which subscription first, obviously, which resource group after, and then which network I want to look at. So you have a hub and spoke network topology here with one hub and two spokes. So I'm going to select VNet spoke B and just wait for a few seconds, and that shows up, right? So you've got the VNet at the top, VNet spoke B, and you've got the different subnets. So I've got 3 subnets in my case, subnet 1, 2, 3, with whatever I have there, which are NICs. And you see on the bottom right, there's demo VM5, and that's the NIC of the VM. And you see that there's an NSG. So it's kind of a visible way of seeing and appreciating what's in your network. So that's for the topology view. Now, if we look at, for example, an IP flow verify. So IP flow verify will tell you if a flow is supposed to be working. A flow is a TCP or UDP session, essentially, is what it is. So same, right? You have to choose what your subscription is, what the resource group you're looking at is, and then your virtual machine. So let me pick this one, which is my demo box. And I want to know, right, if it's inbound or outbound from the perspective of the virtual machine. So that virtual machine has this IP, and let's say that I want to know, am I going to be able to do SSL from the internet? So let me just pick an IP address, 1245, and remote port. That could be anything really. And that'll tell me when I click check if that's going to be allowed or not. So it's fetching the NSG. And you see here, it is allowed because of this specific rule. Now, had I tried 444, you can probably imagine that it's not going to work. Well, because it's not. Because there is no rule that would effectively allow that. Now, I also have a VPN from where I am to, let's say, SSH here from, let's say, 192.168.32. I don't know, 100. That's where I am right now, or close to. I would do a check here, and I would see that this hopefully is going to be allowed. And if I did try to go from there, I think that's the IP 218. It's hopefully going to work, and I'm in the machine right now. So no surprise there. The other thing, so that can be quite useful when something doesn't work. It goes with UDP or TCP in and outbound. So the other thing you might want to take a look at is also the next hub finder. So kind of the same parameters you have to select. So let's choose a virtual machine. You have to choose a resource group and the network interface, because that virtual machine could, depending on the kinds of virtual machines they are. If I use these guys, they have 4 NICs. But if I use my virtual machine, it only has 1. That's its source IP. It could have more than 1 source IP, and I could want to see, okay, what's my next hop? For reaching my machine at home, and it's going to look through it. Probably going to come back with something like the gateway, because in my current setup, that's what it is, right? So virtual network gateway. That's the VPN gateway that ultimately leads to my home network, because I do have a VPN at home. If you had ExpressRoute, you would see something similar. If you had in the next hop, you could have a virtual appliance like firewalls, and you would see the appliance's IP as the next hop, if that was what you had configured. The next thing is security group view. Again, same parameters you have to select. So let me go ahead and click on my resource group and look at a particular virtual machine. Again, you have to select the network interface. In my case, I only have 1. So it's going ahead and it's fetching the different information. So you see the effective inbound and outbound rules. You're also able to download them if you click here on the top, the download link. And you're also able to see kind of separate these things out, because you have the default rules, And the default rules are what they are. Allow VNet inbound. So by default, everybody in the VNet can talk to each other. Load balancer is also something that's allowed to enable any work machine, any virtual machine that is behind the load balancer to be queried. And the rest is denied, everything coming from the internet. That's what's there by default, inbound and outbound. Now, there's also rules that can be applied at the network interface level. So previously, when I did my IP verify flow, I tried port 443, and the rule was add 443. That's how I've called it. Now, you could also have rules that are at the subnet level. So I've got one here, priority 400, 443, says allow, and the effective, if I sort them by priority, gives you what the overall thing is, right? So just a tool, centralized tool. There were other ways to see these information before, the next hop in the security group view. Not quite the next hop, but you could see the effective route table from elsewhere, which gives you a similar output or a similar goal. So that's for security group view. Now, super interesting thing, in my opinion, coming from a networking background, is the packet capture. So what is the packet capture? As its name implies, it captures packet. So how does it do that? It actually requires an agent to be deployed on your virtual machine. Very, very small agent, doesn't take a lot of performance. When it stops running, doesn't take really any toll on the machine, but when it is, it takes a small toll just trying to get the capture that you're trying to get. So if I click here on add, because I want to do a new capture, for example, I always have to select the same parameters, and I will select my machine here, and let's call this the demo capture, demo cap. I can ensure that it says ensure that the VM VM agent is installed. It is in my case. Then where do I want to put the data? You could put it in a file, but I'm going to put it in a storage account, and I'm going to select one storage account here. And as in any network capture software, I guess most of them, you're able to select, I only want the first 100 bytes because maybe that's what I need. I'm going to capture for 30 seconds, and I'm going to stop after 1 megabyte. You could optionally add capture filters, because you could say, well, I only need TCP port, whatever. I don't need to capture the rest. And you just hit OK. And now it processes the order, and it will actually start the capture on that virtual machine. And that's actually conveniently the same virtual machine I had connected here, so I can do, run some pings or whatnot. And I guess we should be lucky enough to find those pings in the capture that I'm going to show you a little bit later. But in the meantime, I had done one here that's currently done. So I'm going to be looking for that capture. So if I just browse, the captures are stored in a storage account for the moment. For some reason, if I click here, it shows me a blade that doesn't work. Apologies for that. So, but it does normally bring you to the download page of it. It's pretty quick. So I'm going to browse through it, quote unquote, manually, as I will just go here in my storage account. Let me find that. Why do I don't see it right now? Containers, storage account. There you go. So that's the one. So I just browse my containers. Ends up in blob storage, as you might guess. And then Network Watcher logs. And then subscriptions, and then you click on your subscription, your resource group, providers, compute, virtual machine. You got to click a couple times. That's why we like the shortcuts in the other thing. And then the month and the day, and then here's the different packet captures. So 12:38 p.m. that corresponds pretty much to the time it is in my time zone, which is Eastern. And then you just hit download, and I get this file here. I just open it up, and voila. We got a couple things here. So for anybody who's familiar with, these kinds of software, if I write ICMP as a filter, I see all my pings that I've been running between that virtual machine. and my own my home network, and I could filter and mess around with this just like you would do with a regular capture, because this is what it is. So I find that it's pretty compelling when you're troubleshooting things. So you can have this, and you can actually do even more interesting things. I mean, I think that's interesting, but I've seen a use case where actually people use Azure Functions to trigger network capture. So think about this. Let's say that you have a virtual machine that if you see that the CPU is working too high, or some other elements in Azure that you can put an alert on. So that alert could actually fire up a webhook as in Azure Functions, and Azure Functions could trigger using just a simple PowerShell script, a capture and email to you after it's done. So it's kind of neat. It helps troubleshooting, and even troubleshooting in specific cases where normally you would not necessarily be able to just get an alert and start running and connecting your wire in your data center to your monitoring station, or just it just makes it so much easier, in my opinion. So a little neat thing here: network subscription limits. It allows you to see, per region, for example, what am I using, what my limits is. And finally, or almost finally, there's the NSG flow logs. So as I said earlier, before we had that, the only counters or logs we had that had any significant, the only logs we had were really the number of times a rule was hit. We didn't know by whom, and we didn't know, when that happened. And quite frankly, for security people, it's normally not enough for understandable reasons. So now if you enable it, and you can enable this in the per network security group object. So I've got one for my demo here, VM, that has this NSG, plus I have one on the subnet where it lives. So both, or these three, there's another VM that's running as well that has it enabled on it. So again, this is going to give it's going to write to storage data that comes from these flow. And that data might be, let's stop this for a moment. The data might be a little bit harsh if you look at it. So let me open this up, and then we'll look at okay, so it looks a little bit like that. So it's a JSON file, right? It's got the timestamp, it's got the system ID, a couple of things here and there, and then that's the epoch time, so number of seconds since January 1st, 1970. And source IP and protocol and destination IP. In fact, source IP, destination IP, or the opposite, and source port, destination port. Is that UDP? Was it accepted, and was it inbound or outbound? So you get this whole thing, and you're able to parse this with any application that you want, and I'm sure there's great open source apps for this. But if you want instead, what you could use is Power BI. So Power BI, for those of you who don't know, is a tool that allows you to quite simply do visualization, and you can also publish that information for others to be able to see that information if need be. And Power BI actually retrieves, this is a template, it's available for download. You can retrieve that template to be able to analyze the files that I was showing earlier in that file, for example. And it can download, it will download everything that you have. So if I hit refresh here, it would actually go ahead and just browse my storage account. I did cancel because there's a couple megabytes and it's going to take some time. But that's what it is. And then you can do filters, and you can can filter by MAC address, by direction, is it inbound, outbound, and so on. And there's also in this visualization, if I just want TCP session, I could hit that, and the display refreshes. I can know that this comes from that IP address and so on, and this port, and what time of day it happens. Was it denied? And if you click on one, kind of highlights what it means. So if you're familiar with Power BI, it's quite powerful, and you could write your own or modify that template to make it even more powerful, or to link it to some other sources of data that you might have. So getting back to here, it's pretty much all I had. I mean, there's a
And
little bit of diagnostic logs. Yep,
I'll stop just to ask one question that came in,
sure.
and this is more of a confirmation. The question was is this tool available now? And I just want you to confirm, that this
Yeah, it is.
was
It's
actually
absolutely
launched.
available now.
Oh, go
It's
ahead.
it's launched. Oh, can you guys still hear me?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. I heard a noise in my headset. So yes, it's absolutely available now, and it's ready for everyone to use.
Yeah, and this is general availability. It's not a preview or anything like
Yeah,
that.
correct. It's been in preview for some time, but now it's generally available.
Okay, thanks. That's the question that we had so far.
Okay, cool. The diagnostic is really kind of putting in one single pane of glass the information that you could have on diagnostics on your resources. And I didn't enable the diagnostics on my own resource, so I don't really have anything here to share. But in a nutshell, as you could see, I guess, through the demo, is there's new things, like packet capture is clearly a new thing. The flow logs is clearly a new thing. The other tools, you could have kind of done a similar thing by looking different places in our portal and finding things, but the nice piece about it is it puts everything in a single pane of glass. So it's quite easy for you guys to find your way around Azure networking when it comes to troubleshooting and diagnostics, just using this. There's other tools elsewhere depending on what you're trying to do. But clearly this is where we're putting our focus and where we're trying to centralize all the diagnostics tool. So that would be it for me.
All right, great. Thanks, Olivia. Yeah, this is a great tool. I don't know if there's any questions that are out there, but if you do have any that you want to ask, please feel free to go ahead and post them in the message window. Again, while we give time for questions, I did want to reiterate that this is the last partner community call, or last monthly partner community call for FY17. We'll get this series started again back in August, so we're going to skip the month of July. So look out for information about next year's schedule starting in August. Lastly, I did post the presentation decks to the Yammer community. Again, that's aka.ms/cloudinfrapartner. We'll have the call recording uploaded there within the next day or two as well, which is going to be helpful because there weren't many slides. It was really a lot of live demo, so the call recording will definitely be more beneficial once that's available. Looks like one question just came in. Can Network Watcher be used for on-premise networks or only in Azure?
Only in Azure. It will, for on-premise, there's a couple things that exist with OMS. One I think is network monitoring, and I'm not positive. I haven't used it myself, but I know that OMS works and is agent-based. So you can have the agents installed on virtual machines that run in Azure, that runs on premise, and that would run in anywhere really. And that's more of the tool that you would use. But the capabilities that we've demoed here are only, for the most part, they're only relevant in the cloud, like the topology, IP flow verify, next hop security group. That's things that get data from the cloud. Packet capture is an agent. Technically, I guess it could work with machines that are remote, but for now, it's an Azure agent.
Okay, thank you. Again, that's the only question that came in. We can go ahead and, oh, actually, one just came in. Another one. Can Network Watcher be used to monitor service fabric traffic in and out?
That's a great question. I don't believe that Network Watcher will be able to. I mean, it has a prerequisite of having an agent running. So if it is possible to install the Network Watcher agent on the Service Fabric cluster, then I guess the answer would be yes. But this is not something that I can answer because I do not know. I know that it is a prerequisite. I just don't know if it's possible to do it on platform kinds of workloads like Service Fabric and others.
Okay. All right. It looks like that's all the questions we have. So at this point, we can go ahead and in the presentation, I want to thank Monica and Olivier for the excellent presentations and live demonstrations, and also thank you for taking time out of your day and joining the call. And lastly, let's go Cavs for a miracle comeback, and let's go Preds. All right. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.